Welcome. This is ratios level number 5. Our learning target today is I can represent ratios with tape diagrams, and I can use tape diagrams to compare ratios and solve real-world problems. Take a minute and rate yourself 1 through 5. How do you feel about these learning targets before we get started on the lesson? At the end of the lesson, we'll come back and rate ourselves again, 1 through 5, 1 being the least confident and 5 being the most confident. If at any point today's lesson is feeling too challenging, make sure to check out ratios levels 1 through 4. Let's take a look at our opening problem. Liz is trying to make pink paint. The ratio of cups of red paint to white paint is 5 to 2. If there are a total of 70 cups of paint, how many cups of red paint are there? How many cups of white paint are there? Pause the video and complete this problem on your own. To solve this problem, one strategy we can use is using tape diagrams to represent the ratio. The first step I did was to represent the ratio of red paint to white paint. Because red came first, I drew 5 boxes. White came second, I drew 2 boxes. Our next step is we're going to label other information from the problem. If there's a total of 70 cups of paint, I can circle all my boxes and write total 70. Now I know I'm going to have to split up this 70 equally into each box. So I can do 70 divided by 7 boxes, because there's a total of 7, and that gives me 10 per box. If you're not writing with me, make sure you start. So what I'll do now is I'll write 10 in every single box. And a way to check yourself is these should all add up to 70, which they do. So our last step is to answer the problem. How many cups of red paint are there? Well, I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 cups of red paint. And 10 times 2 for our white paint is 20. You always want to check to make sure your answer is reasonable. Like I mentioned before, if there's 70 cups total, then the cups of red and white should add to 70, which they do. Let's go ahead and take a look at our notes. The first step when we're solving ratio word problem is to draw a tape diagram and label the quantities in the ratio. You should be writing with me. Boxes should be lined up the same size and just really neat work. The next step is we're going to label any other information the problem provides. So in the problem above, some other information the problem provided was that there's a total of 70 cups of paint. Remember, you can always pause the video if you need more time. Step number 3 is to divide to figure out the value of one box. In the problem above, we divided 70, our total, by 7 boxes. All boxes will have the same number. So once you figure out the value for one box, like up here, we figured out one box was 10, then you can write that number in all of the boxes. And then last but not least, and this is a really important step, I don't want you to look over this part, make sure to reread the question and answer it correctly. Example A says, the ratio of girls to boys in the school is 2 to 5. If there are 30 more boys than girls, how many total students are in the 6th grade? So step number 1, we're going to draw a tape diagram and label our ratios. So it's ratio of girls to boys. Girls came first, and the order matters when we're learning about ratios. And so because girls came first and 2 came first, I'm going to draw a tape diagram of girls, boys, and I'll draw 2 boxes for the girls. Then boys came second and 5 came second, so I'll draw 5 boxes for the boys. Make sure you're writing with me. Step number 2, we're going to label any other information the problem provides. So in this case, it says there are 30 more boys than girls. Well, this is why it's so important to keep our tape diagram neat. Up until this point in our tape diagram, we're equal, okay? But once we get here, we have 3 more boxes for the boys. So those 3 boxes are going to represent the 30. We have 30 more boys than girls. Step number 3, we're going to divide to figure out the value of one box. So I'm going to do 30 divided by those 3 boxes, right? Because these boxes are more for boys. Girls only have 2. And we get 10 per box. Now remember, once you figure out the value of one box, you can write that in all of the boxes. That's why we keep our boxes the same size. Great. So our last step, and this is really important, reread the question and answer it using your tape diagram. Our question says, how many total students are in the 6th grade? So it didn't ask for the number of girls, didn't ask for the number of boys. How many total students? Well, we have 20 girls, right? We have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 boys. So the total number of students, 20 plus 50 is 70. Go ahead and try out example B on your own. Pause the video and then come back to check your work. This is what you should have for your first step. This is how you should have labeled 60 golden retrievers. We split up that 60 into 2 boxes and we get 30 per box. Then the question asks, how many are pit bulls? 30 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equals 150. Check your work, fix any mistakes, and feel free to rewatch this problem if you feel a little bit confused. Flip to page number 2. At the top of page 2, you can see step by step and an example. Go ahead and pause the video, complete A, and then come back to the video to check your work. Go ahead and check your work. First, check to make sure you labeled tennis players and basketball players. Then, check to make sure you labeled 25 more to represent one box of tennis players, because there's one box more. You should have 25 in each box. How many tennis players are there? 25, 50, 75. And how many basketball players? 50. Complete the rest of page 2, and then come back to the video once you're done. Flip to page 3, complete problem A, then come back to the video to check your work. Okay, so first check to make sure you labeled chairs and tables. You should have 8 boxes for chairs and 5 boxes for tables. Then we can represent 60 more by showing the 60 over those 3 extra boxes that chairs have. Then we split up 60 and equally into those 3 boxes and we get 20 per box. Check to make sure you have 20 in every box. Then we'll solve our problem. How many chairs are there? Well, 20 times 8 is 160. How many tables? 20 times 5, because there's 5 boxes here, is 100. How many total chairs and tables? Well, total is a keyword for addition, so I'm going to add 160 plus 100 to get 260. Flip to page 4. Complete problem A, then come back to the video to check your work. This is what you should have as your first step. This is what you should have to represent liking 23 more songs. If one box is 23, all of the boxes are 23. The question's asking how many total songs did he listen to? So we're including liked and disliked. And 23 times 5 is 115 total songs. Complete the rest of page 4, then come back to the video. Complete problem A on page number 5, then come back to the video to check your work. Step number 1. Step number 2. We split up that 18 equally into 3 boxes, so we get 6 per box. Last step, answer the question, how many cups of blue paint? 6 times 3 is 18. How many cups of yellow paint? 6 times 6 is 36. And then how many total cups of paint altogether? We'll add them together and get 54. Complete the rest of page 5 and then come back to the video. Flip to page number 6. Complete our common misconception problem, then come back to the video to check your work. The problem says, Tayshawn and Amari each solve the problem below. Analyze each of their work, then answer the questions. The ratio of red roses to white roses at the wedding was 5:1. I see both Tayshawn and Amari drew 5 boxes for red and 1 box for white. Then it says, if there are 16 more red roses. Well, I can see that Tayshawn labeled 16 more correctly, but then Amari put 16 in every box, which is not correct. So who set up their problem correctly above? What mistake did the other person make? So Tayshawn is correct. Amari did not label 16 correctly. 16 should represent 16 more red roses. And there are 4 more boxes for red roses than there are white roses. The next question says, how many red roses are there? Well, we could add all of our 4s together or do 4 times 5 to get 20 red roses. How many white roses are there? Well, we just have 1 box of 4, so there's just 4 white roses. And then how many total roses are there? Total is a keyword for addition, and 20 plus 4 is 24 total roses. Go ahead and complete the closing problem, then come back to the video. And last but not least, take a minute for debrief A. In your own words, what did you learn today? How much effort did you put in? 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, and explain. And then what do you think a common misconception or a common mistake a student might make when learning ratios? After you've answered all 3 of these questions, go back to page number 1 and rate yourself after the lesson. At the start of the lesson, we looked at our learning targets and you rated yourself 1 through 5. Now that we've practiced more, I want you to rate yourself again. 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. How well do you understand these learning targets? If you're interested in more ratios practice and you haven't completed them already, we do have ratios levels 1 through 4. We also have ratio tables, unit rate, rates, converting fraction decimals and percents, and so much more. Have a great day.